So, Brian, I was watching some YouTube earlier, and I was watching this video with Mark Wahlberg, and watching this thing with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. They're talking about dad jokes, and I was watching it. I want to plagiarize one of the jokes. It's not verbatim, it's just what I remember all the top of my head. It was the funniest one to me. So I heard Steve Harvey and his wife got into a fight with their kids. It was a family feud.
That was the best joke.
I love that joke, man. It was great.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, who said the joke? Wahlberg or Ferrell?
Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg is the one who said the joke. Will Ferrell,
did Will Ferrell
laughed at that one. He didn't laugh at all of them, but he did laugh at that one.
I would imagine that game, Will Ferrell would be better at the not laughing part. He's better at keeping a straight face. That kind of with stupid jokes like that, because most of his comedy is stupid jokes.
Yeah.
So,
it's great. And nothing to do with the episode today, guys. But I just want to give you that.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things that because of my reaction, how stupid I found the joke, that is the point of dad jokes. So I guess you have to give it a high grade. But yeah, stupid joke, but yeah, in a good way.
It was a good 8-minute video. I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well, I've enjoyed videos like that too with the dad jokes and not cracking. Some people are better at that than others, I'll tell you that. I've said before, me and you should do that on an episode and see how it goes. I've said that before.
Yeah. I mean, looking at how many they got through in only 8 minutes, I wonder how we'd have to have either a lot of dad jokes or just talk about them a lot throughout the episode. Like, say the joke and then start, I don't know, making it boring by explaining the joke or something. I don't know. We had to stretch it out.
We would have to get through a lot of jokes. And just have a lot of jokes in stock. And if you get through them, great. If not, then it doesn't matter. But I think that'd be an interesting episode because we both love dad jokes. We both use it a lot for the opening, and we both react to it. But there's no challenge to not react to it. But now, how would we do if the challenge is stone face? You know, the neutral expression. We'll see how we do with that.
Hey, maybe we could do like a 10-minute. We could do like a 20-minute episode, like a mini episode. Where I spend 10 minutes getting you to laugh, and I'll do a counter every time I get you to laugh, and then we'll flip the script and see if you can who wins. It'd
be one of those. We have YouTube now, so we can make it one of our shorts instead of our videos.
There you go. Is 20 minutes considered a short nowadays, though?
Well, okay, you said 10.
Okay, 10 each.
Two separate ones.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, okay. 2 separate ones.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, that was a conversation that you guys usually don't hear that we have before and after our recordings. So you got a little peek into the bullshit that we talk about that goes normally unheard of by anyone but me and Zach. So with that, welcome everyone to the Value Added Podcast. Me and Zach are here. I'm me. Zach is Zach.
Typically.
Me also goes by Brian. Yes, me also goes by Brian. And today we're doing something that has nothing to do with anything we've done so far. As silly as we've sounded so far, and as lighthearted and all that, this topic is not going to be that. Today we are doing a topic about LGBTQ rights. It's, at least from my standpoint, I'm basically just going to be giving out a lot of information that I looked up. It was Zach, being the dictator of the podcast that he is, gave me the assignment of coming up with all the information. I begrudgingly accepted because otherwise I get verbally abused by him because he's a dictator. So I took care of all that. Obviously, we're going to be sharing our opinions about a lot of this back and forth, but mostly how this episode is going to go is I'm going to be relaying a lot of the information that I looked up. Zach's going to give his thoughts. I'm going to respond to Zach, and we're going to have a conversation about it. That's pretty much it.
Hey, look, I'm here for it. I'm prepared as well. I brought all my biases and opinions to today's episode. So if you guys want to share your thoughts, be sure just to leave them in the comments, email, all that good stuff like we always talk about. We'll do that at the end of the episode. But as he's discussing these things, I want to hear from you guys too, so we can keep the conversation going.
Yes, you are fully strapped, Zach. All right. So I am going to bring out my trusty little notepad because that's where I have everything written down. So to start off, I guess I'm going to go over a little bit of what I saw from our friends at AI. If you put in LGBTQ rights, the Google search, Google Assist, aka AI, populates a long list of things. I'm not going to go over all of it. Some of it's like historical events that maybe if it just happens to come up during a conversation, I'll mention it. But I kind of want to go over what AI says about this stuff, and I want you guys to pay particular attention to how it's framed. Mm-hmm. The wording, the words that are used, the orders of the words, the types of words that are used, and in that certain context and things like that. That's what I want you guys to pay attention to. I'm going to try to read as slow as I can so everyone can grasp it, and especially you, Zach. We'll go one point at a time so we don't get bogged down and overwhelmed, and then we'll go from there. So that's my starting point. How do you feel about that, Mr. Zach?
I feel great. Just can you slow it down a little more? That was a bit fast for me. Just let's keep it at like about 5 miles an hour from here on out. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so rights of fundamental human rights to protect individuals and identify. Okay, no, all right. Don't worry, guys. That was not a glitch by anything like that. It was I was being silly. Okay, so here's I pretty much put verbatim, wrote down, not even in no form, verbatim what I saw from AI about LGBTQ rights. Okay, so here we go. LGBTQ rights are fundamental human rights that protect individuals who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or intersex. These rights are essential for ensuring equality and dignity for all individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. I will stop there for a moment. Zach.
I have no argument so far. Everything sounds great. I'm really curious what these rights are because it's easy to say
I'm
that.
so glad you asked.
It's easy to say that, but what exactly does this mean? Because as far as I know, they should apply across the board. But go ahead, please proceed.
Yes. The first thing that came up to me, and then we'll get into the next point, which is some of the words that are being used. Like I told you guys to do that. Some of the words that stuck out to me were fundamental and essential. Mm-hmm. Those are the two words that stuck out to me because when you are trying to give just information out in a Google search type of way, those words are not words that have anything to do with like factual or not factual.
Yeah.
It's geared for framing to gear you a certain way.
Those are persuasive words, I would say, yeah.
Yes, yes, exactly. Okay, so what are those fundamental rights? Again, so glad you asked, Zach. Here we go. There's 3 different ones that I saw, again, on this Google AI.
Okay.
LGBTQ individuals are to be free from discrimination in various areas like employment, housing, and healthcare.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that for a minute? We can break that down a little bit.
Yeah, each one is different. Is so different that we should separate it. Yes.
All right. So employment, housing, and healthcare. Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Free from discrimination.
Free from discrimination. This is one of those times because I knew this was going to happen a lot in this topic. I'm sure I'll say this again over and over again in this episode. But when we say something like free from discrimination, first of all, that's a pipe dream that doesn't actually exist. Discrimination in the form of what exactly? People giving you sideways glares or glances, people avoiding you or staying away from you, whatever. People looking at you and having a negative thought. What do you mean when you say discrimination? Because that's an extremely subjective thing. Right? Discrimination in the sense of, we're not going to hire you for the job. Even in that situation, it's still extremely difficult to tell, okay, was it because you walked in as a man with a beard and a dress? Is that the reason you didn't get the job, or is the reason you didn't get the job because you've been unemployed for the last 9 months? There's contributing factors here that we have to take into account in order to prove any kind of discrimination happened. So on the lines of the job itself, I'm interested to see, well, what exactly does discrimination against LGBTQ, specifically for LGBTQ, look like? And how is that a protected thing that wouldn't be protected for everybody else?
Well, so far it's not a protection. It's considered under the category of fundamental rights. Mm-hmm. So far what I'm seeing here, and it's not going to be this way the entire thing as we get later on, but so far a lot of this is, again, not so much factual or not factual. When I say not factual, I don't mean opinion. I mean the fact is right or the fact is wrong. It's not a factual thing. It's more about how people feel about this, their opinions, and what's, I guess, the mainstream narrative about it. that these rights are fundamental human rights. Not everyone agrees that these type of rights, not just LGBTQ, that rights like employment, housing, healthcare, not everybody agrees that those are fundamental human rights to begin with. Mm-hmm. It depends on how you look at rights. That's a deep psychological, philosophical topic that not everyone even thinks about in depth. So some people don't even agree that has anything to do with fundamental rights, but they're using the word fundamental to elicit an emotional response. And again, the other point I'll have is what you just said when it comes to free from discrimination. That's intentionally vague because that can easily be used in any situation, even if it has nothing to do with your sexual orientation or gender identity. Obviously, the way I would describe it as far as what discrimination would be, in the case of housing, for example, you are denied a house because you're gay. That is an example of discrimination that has to do with your LGBTQ status. That is not acceptable. But is that why you got denied the house? That's, I guess, the point you were making.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really, really difficult thing to prove. And at the same time, I again draw issue with this whole fundamental thing as well, the same way that you are, simply because, first of all, I don't agree that any of these things are fundamental. You don't have any right to a house, you don't have any right to a job, and you don't have any right to healthcare. Okay, those are rights to things that you didn't make. All right, all of those things are. You have a right to a job that you didn't, at a company you didn't make. You have a right to a house that you didn't build. You have a right to healthcare being provided by another person. What the hell are you talking about? None of those are rights. All of those are privileges that you get to enjoy as being a part of this great country that we live in. Anyway, I won't hammer on that point too much. I'll let you kind of get back to it. So what's the next thing? So work, housing,
healthcare.
And healthcare.
Yes, okay. Yes. So there's there's more fundamental rights in this category. So the next one is, again, LGBTQ individuals have the fundamental right to marry and adopt children, and a point that was added later on in the same bullet for this right is it ensures family recognition and support. Again, when I see that, especially in a Google search, when you just want to get facts, that seems like an unnecessary but intentional addition, because when you, again, just looking for facts and information, what the hell does that mean?
I want you to say that part one more time for me. You said family recognition and support.
Ensuring family recognition and support.
Yeah. This is another one of those things. It's crazy that the word right is being used here, right? Because a right is like an entitlement. It's something that is owed to you. Okay? It's something that's owed to you. If I said you have the right to life, that means I owe you a duty to not kill you. Okay? That's exactly what that means when you have a right to it. So in this case, if you're saying we have a right, one of their rights is to be recognized as a family unit when you have, whatever combination of these people together living in a household, that's insane. Okay? That's a really insane position to take, to say that you have a right that people that are supposed to accept you based on some kind of right. So what happens if we violate that, right? What happens if I see the couple and I say, oh, gross, nasty, get away from me, whatever. What happens then? And if, depending on what your answer is to it, as countries have made this answer, you can go to a place like Europe and you can go to jail if you say the wrong thing or you express the wrong opinion. Okay, they police that stuff. In America, we care a lot about free speech, so we're not policing that kind of thing, at least at the moment, and at least not to the extent that other countries are. But I'm sure that even in a small way, that's going on today. And in a much smaller way, if we're looking at like jobs or relationships that you have in your personal life, you can absolutely get an unfavorable outcome if you treat someone in a way like that. And to be perfectly fair, when it comes to all of this, I believe in treating people with a basic level of respect. I don't think that you're owed it, but I do think that it's a good thing for society to treat people with a basic level of respect. One of the issues that comes in when it comes to these people in the LGBTQ category is they're not looking for acceptance to just conform to society. They're looking for acceptance to be something outside of the standards of society. Okay, wearing bright clothes, for example, bright distracting clothes, or lots of jewelry, or whatever they're going to do in order to, they won't say this, but draw attention to themselves because they want to express themselves in a way that draws attention. But they want to be treated like everybody else. That those things kind of don't work together really well in reality, and that seems to be one of the things that they're trying to fight against.
Yeah, it'd be like you said, everyone's wearing a white T-shirt, a plain white T-shirt in the crowd, and one person's wearing like a pink T-shirt and like green socks, and then everyone notices it and points it out and has different types of words to describe it. And then the person who wore it for the sole purpose of getting attention complains that they got attention.
Yeah. Especially if that attention is negative. You know, I'll give you an example. In certain private schools, they have dress code. And if you were to violate that dress code and wear something crazy or do something crazy with your outfit, you're going to get attention. And a lot of that attention is probably going to be negative because everyone else is thinking, okay, we all have to conform to be a certain way here. Why are you doing something that is disruptive to the rest of society? Are you so important? Are you so special that all of the rest of us just have to accept that you're doing something crazy and not bat an eye?
Well, yeah, and this is the issue that you see. And unfortunately, it's a very small sample of people, but it's very, they get they have a big voice on social media or in the regular media or whatever. It's a small group that has a loud voice that everyone kind of assumes represents the majority of people in whatever group you're talking about. This is true not just with LGBTQ. This is true of any kind of group
Absolutely.
that you want to that get a certain label attached to them. It's based on a very small sample that gets enlarged and everyone thinking it includes everybody. So in this case, it's most of the people who are one of these sexual orientations just want to go about living their life and don't really care about any of this other stuff. But you have the small group who weaponize it, use it for attention, use it for victimization. You know, like ask for attention, get the attention, complain about the attention, or don't get the attention, they complain that they're not getting attention, so they're not satisfied either way. That kind of thing, and then you see that and you get sour to the whole thing, and now you're sour to the entire group, which is not really fair either. So that's kind of what my issue is with a lot of this.
Okay. And before you move on, I don't want to skip over this point at all because you did mention something along the lines of I can't quote you a right to adopting children. Okay.
Yes.
Again, where are they coming up with the word right in this case? There is no right to adopt children. I have never heard of such a right to adopt children. You're saying that you have a right to someone else's kid. That's what that means. That's an insane position to take. There is no right to someone else's kid. It's an application process that you need to be screened for and you need to be eligible for, okay? And I don't even know what the rules are. I've never tried to adopt before, but I would assume one of the basic requirements is that you have a stable, mentally healthy, financially healthy households to be able to take that child into. That child was probably taken out of a very bad situation. Why would you then want to put them in another bad situation? But then you make the argument, okay, well, let's say we have a lesbian couple, but the lesbian couple, they both used to be men, but then they decided to get sex changes, so it's two men who transitioned to women, but now they're together, and so it's a two-mom household. It's really not, but whatever. So that's what they're trying to say, and they want to adopt a kid. All right. Here's my opinion, which if you care about it, you care about it. I don't care, whatever. My opinion is that is not a healthy relationship in that household. That also does not spell to me that these two people are capable of understanding reality and the world around them to a degree in which they can raise or should be raising children. Okay, now can we stop them from having children of their own? No. If they get surrogacies, whatever. There are options that they could do if they wanted to have a child with somebody else, but taking them from the system, those kids that are supposed to be cared for and protected, and giving them to a family like this is a crazy position to take. I really just wanted to mention this point because I want to draw attention to the idea of adoption being a right. That is a really crazy position to take.
Yeah, I kind of half agree with. Yeah, I half agree with that. Just so I guess since you shared yours, I'll share mine. I don't think that people in those situations automatically disqualifies you from being able to adopt children, being able to adopt a child, whether it's gay or trans or they're both trans or whatever. It doesn't disqualify you, and it is not the I don't think it should be the deal breaker where everything else points to yes, let them adopt, and now it's they're trans, so forget it. Like I don't think that's a wise course to take. However, having said all that, the idea that you have a right to it is also insane because and for on a broader scale, this is something that people just need to have a conversation with each other about in general. Like, what is a right? Where do they come from? Who gives them to us? What do we have to do with them? Things like that. Because people just throw that word around because once they attach that word to whatever they want, now it seems more likely that they're going to get it. when really that's the whole goal. They want this thing or whatever that thing is, but they don't want to ask for it or demand it, so they say it's a right, and now it's like, well, now I have to get it because it's a right. That's weaponization. Okay, so I'll move on to the next thing, which is the last thing on the fundamental rights, and then we'll go on to something else. So the last fundamental right, and this one is the word in it is blatant. They're not even trying on this one. Members of the LGBTQ community should have access to healthcare services without discrimination based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. I love when you're trying to get information and facts, they place the should. When the AI gives you their opinion that you should have.
It's an AI, by the way. It's not even a person.
Right. Now, do I disagree with that? Absolutely not. But that's not the point I'm making here. The point I'm making here is it's on AI, Google search for LGBTQ rights, and the AI spit out they should have it. So they're not even telling you that they do or they don't, or what the reasons are, the arguments for or against it. They just say, oh, we're telling you that they should, so that means they should. Again, I happen to agree with that, but that's not the point.
Okay. I will respond to this, and basically I'll try to share something if I can try to remember the exact terminology of it. So there's something that women can get, ovarian cancer, for example. I don't know what the treatments are exactly, if they have to remove certain things out of the body, whatever it may be. But that is a thing that's very specific to women. So imagine, for example, that a girl who decided to transition to a guy goes into a doctor's office, and the doctor's like, well, you have ovarian cancer, we're going to have to remove a certain thing or something, or we're going to have to give you this kind of treatment. And this individual then claims that is sexual discrimination, or that is misgendering or something like that. So when you made that quote about how it's the medical side supposed to be fair and they should be able to have the health care that they desire, not based on their gender, it's actually a really dumb position to take, because there are some fundamental differences between the genders that doctors who deal in the realm of reality really have to pay attention to. It doesn't matter how you feel about your body. Your body is a thing that exists in the world, and it is, you have stuff inside your body. So they might have to do things that you find uncomfortable because you've decided to identify as a different gender. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's not how I interpreted this sentence, though.
Okay.
When I interpreted it, and what I agree with would be a doctor goes to treat somebody, finds out that they're gay, and says, I don't want to treat you now because you're gay. And even though the person came in, you're the only doctor in the office, or you're the only person who can help this individual, but you're just not going to help them because they're gay. That is not a course of action that I would agree with, because, just along the same lines as, their race or their gender, mm-hmm. or their political affiliation or their religion, not help being once you take once you're the doctor, you take that oath, do whatever the oath is, do no harm.
Yeah, they have the whole doctor oath. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the Hippocratic oath. Once you do that, you kind of have to put your personal biases aside, and even if you can't stand gay people, and whatever weird reason you can't stand gay people, you still got to help them. That's how I interpreted it, and that's the part I agree with. Obviously, your example is a situation where that's being weaponized, and no matter how much you agree with a certain stance, people are going to find a way to weaponize it. But that is not the person being discriminated against because of their gender identity, because they're not being discriminated against. They're saying you have ovarian cancer, and they're trying to treat the ovarian cancer. You're just claiming discrimination because you don't like the terminology because of your deluded mind of man versus woman and all that other stuff. So that's not discrimination in really any logical sense of the word.
Yeah. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I watch a lot of police shows, investigative stuff, and you'll see, and one of the things that I find interesting, because it really applies to this situation, is that, let's say that a man brutally tried to rape and attack a child, okay, and did rape and attack some girl or something like that. In the process, the girl scratched his eye out or something, or hurt him really badly trying to defend herself. The doctors still have to treat the guy, right? Which seems crazy because, morally, I feel like most people wouldn't mind letting that guy die. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they still have to do it. But here's an interesting thing about my personal opinion, which, good thing I'm not a doctor, because I would fail in this field. I don't think that it's complicated, because on one hand, you want to do no harm and you want to help people when you have the opportunity to help people. If someone comes in with a gunshot wound, doesn't matter the story, you just want to help that person not die. And that's a good thing. That's a good, honorable thing to do. Where I draw issue is when we say words like have to. Okay, when we say words that are obligatory words, like you're forced to do this or you're forced to do that. It's the same thing with the cake situation. You're forced to make the cake for the gay wedding. Are you forced to? Do you have to? No, I don't think that you do. I think that you should have a choice to. You know, a freedom of choice is not the same from freedom of consequence. Okay, if you don't want to make the gay cake wedding, that means you might lose business from all of it for them and all their family and friends. All the people who support them aren't going to want to go to your cake shop anymore or support you. If you're a doctor and you say, hey, I'm not going to do abortions, for example, well, all the people who are big fans of abortions might, boycott you, or they might not want to do business with you. And that's a risk you have to take. Okay, these are the things that I think any reasonable person has to make these assessments for themselves. I just draw issue anytime we say you have to do something. You have to treat this person. You have to fix this issue. No, I don't. I hate entitlements. I really, really hate entitlements. I do not think that you are entitled to anything of anyone else's, period. Now, we can say that, there's a law that says that you should be able to get this access. Okay, fine. And by the way, there's so many people in the world, so many doctors, so many professions, so many cake shops, right? That even if one cake shop says we're not going to make your cake, there's another cake shop 5 seconds down the road who will make your cake for you. So instead of bitching about the one because they have a moral stance that you don't like, go somewhere else and take your friends with you too. That's fine. You can give them consequences, like, without your business. It's not the same as making it like a legal problem. You didn't make my cake, now you're going to jail, that kind of thing. I draw the line there.
Yeah, I mean, I've had similar thoughts. I remember talking to a friend about this a long time ago, and she was saying that, like, a company should have the right, she was using the word right a little loosely, like we all do, to just be racist about who they hire and their customers, where they can say, I don't want to accept any customers who are this a certain race. They should be able to do that, and no law telling them that they can't. It's just potentially going to be very bad for business, because you're going to lose all those people of that race for business, plus all the other people who aren't that race but don't like you doing that, so that they boycott you and you get bad exposure and all that. So you're potentially losing a lot of business. So you should be able to do that without laws telling you otherwise. It's just a risky situation, because then the public opinion might go against you. I'm not going to go too much further into that, because I want to get into the specific protections that AI tells you before we get to our break, because there's more to do after this as well. Okay.
I'll zip it.
So this is more of the factual part of the AI part regarding LGBTQ rights. It's not fundamental rights. It's specific protections. So these are the things that are actually protected. And some of it we can expand on a little bit later. For example, the first thing that comes up is legal recognition of same-sex marriages in many countries. Later on, I'm going to go into a little bit more of which countries accept it, which countries don't. Not every single one, but just give you an idea. Yep. Ability for same-sex couples to adopt children. We already discussed that. Now, the wording I thought was a little weird about ability for same-sex couples. It doesn't really specify what is allowed by law, but that's what it said. Access to medical care without bias or discrimination. We talked about that as well. Right for transgender individuals to change their legal gender. That's another thing we're going to get into later regarding countries that allow and countries that don't. Spoiler for both of these things. If you guys think the United States is oppressive, wait till we get to these lists. That's all I'm going to say for now. And last but not least, safeguards against hate crimes and violence based on sexual orientation or gender identity. We have discussed this before. I'll just mention it briefly. The hate crime thing to me is very redundant. It's like I heard one person mention this. I don't like the way he worded it, but I get what he was saying. Is there such thing as a love crime? Like, right, there's exactly. Not. Yeah. The hate crime to me, there's no crime that I can think of people that are committing against, especially if it's against another person. We're not talking about the money laundering and stuff like that. Like actual violence, those kind of things. There's always some kind of hate involved. It's not always related to sexual orientation or gender identity or race. It could just be, I hate this person because they beat me in a basketball game. It could be something stupid like that. Or they stole my girl. It's still hate involved. So the hate crime thing is a emotional appeal wording. But those are the things that AI tells you are specific protections. Like I said, we'll get into it a little bit later.
Again, we talked a lot about several of those already. The hate crime one, I like the example that you gave, the whole love crime. That doesn't exist. Obviously, this is something that's, anyone who thinks about it for more than 2 seconds realizes what it is. And it's also interesting because, of course, it only goes one way, right? A hate crime can never go the other way. The hate crime can never be, an assassin who's LGBTQ kills a conservative who is a public speaker who speaks out against LGBTQ. Can that be considered a hate crime? Absolutely. Based on your definition, will it be considered a hate crime? Absolutely not. Okay? So, yes, it's very redundant. It's also extremely biased, and it's weaponized in a very terrible way. I'll let you move on. I guess that's all my thoughts in the moment.
Yeah, I sped through all that because, like I said, some of that we're going to get into more specifics regarding what other countries and specific United States, the states within the U.S., allow and don't allow. Just to give you guys more of a factual idea of, where other countries and other states stand with this stuff. And hopefully it gives you all a little more perspective when you will bitch and moan about how oppressive and how oppressive the United States is, and how it's, basically like living in a slave country, and, supremacies and all that other stuff. Hopefully some of this stuff we get to later will clear that up. So the next thing is, which one do I get to the next thing? The extraordinary events, I'll pass that. If you go to the website for the Department of Health and Human Services, which is a big government agency, there's another office in there called the OCR, the Office for Civil Rights. And their job, among other things I'm assuming, is to enforce Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act. What does that section do? I'm glad you asked, Zach. I can tell you asked it. I can see all over your face.
I'm so curious.
Yes. It prohibits discrimination against individuals on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, and disability in covered health programs or activities. That's it.
Sure. And for a government standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. Let me explain something kind of to I don't know, elaborate on the point I made earlier today. For a government to have standards like that, we can't discriminate on the basis of race, sex, orientation, all that good stuff, right? That makes sense because that's your government. That's your government body. And if you didn't like something your government was doing, you can't just, you can go to a different country, but within your country, you can't just decide that the government laws are no longer going to apply to you. It's not the same case when it comes to private businesses or individuals or individual doctors' offices or whatever, where those people can express whatever opinion they want to, and you could just go to the next door and go to someone else's practice instead. Which is why I made the point that, people should be allowed to do what they want to do, to discriminate however the hell they please, and face whatever consequences they do as a result. I don't have the same opinion when it comes to the government, so yeah, I understand Section 1552, if that's what you said. I very much agree with it.
1557, but it doesn't matter.
57. Oh, close.
Yes. The next part of this HHS website, you were going to have a lot to say about, so I'm going to pause it for now. We're going to get to our intermission, and then we'll get back to it afterwards, because, yes, you were going to have a lot to say about this next thing.
Alrighty.
So, with that, everyone take a breather, unclench your jaw and your fists, and put your hair back in your head. You'll be pulling out later, though, I'm sure. We'll be back after these brief messages. Welcome back, guys. I'm sure after what we've done so far, you guys are just itching for another rant from me. So here we go. Things that piss me off but shouldn't. We're going to get into a whole episode of this down the road, but I might as well just put a little bow on it right now and go on a short little monologue, and that is holidays. Now, I don't mean like I hate Christmas. That's not what I mean when I say holidays. What I mean is I hate the way people are during holidays. Everyone flocking to the stores, and not just flocking to the stores because you want to buy stuff, but suddenly there's no decorum. Everyone's tackling each other. Everyone's throwing haymakers and fighting with each other because they want the big screen TV the day after Thanksgiving, by the way, when you're supposed to be thankful for what you have. That's another point. People go into the stores the day before the holiday because they forgot they got to load up on food as if the holiday sneaks up on you. Christmas Day is December 25th every year, guys. Every year. It never changes. So why you wait until Christmas Eve, 7 o'clock p.m. to go to the grocery store to load up on on carts worth of stuff because you don't have food for your house? Again, Christmas Day does not sneak up on you. It's not a hurricane that came out of nowhere. All these holidays, either they're the same date every year or you can look in advance. When's Memorial Day? You can look. The last Monday in May. It's not the same literal date, but it's always the last Monday in May. 4th of July is literally July 4th. These holidays don't sneak up on people, and yet everyone reacts as we go up to the holiday as if they just woke up from a hibernation and were told, oh yeah, a holiday in 24 hours, you gotta get prepared. And now, suddenly it's everybody else's problem. Now, the holiday spirit is gone, and now it's just a free-for-all where I gotta get my 17 buckets of chicken and the hell with everybody else, and if I gotta wait in line with other people who are just like me, that's unacceptable. So I'm gonna cut in line, yell and scream at the workers, at the other customers, all because you're so stressed because you gotta get your holiday barbecue. You really don't. You don't. If it's that stressful for you to go to the holiday barbecue on Labor Day, don't go to the holiday barbecue. It's not that important. If it's going to stress you out to that point, and if it causes you to get to this situation where you have to spend half your savings on gifts for the neighbor, and you don't like doing that, then don't do it. But what people do is they do these things, act like they have no choice in the matter, act like they're helpless, and then bitch and moan about all the other things that aren't going their way. Oh, you're out of this item. Sorry, other people besides you wanted it, and they prepared in advance because Christmas comes in December. They bought it in September. They didn't wait until December 23rd and then go to the video game store and buy the video game that was on that just went on sale because they want to get rid of it, and now you wonder why they're all gone. Most of this stuff is on you. You do this to yourself, and rather than being in the holiday spirit, not just Christmas, in the spirit of what the holiday is supposed to be about, you guys turn it into this big clusterfuck because you guys make it all about you and all this self-induced stress. Not that I should talk about that, and turn into mayhem where people don't want to go to the other stores as customers. You certainly don't want to work in these environments, and it just comes to the point where people go from liking holidays to dreading them because of you. And people like you. Screw you. Back to the show.
Man, dude, I got a lot to say about this. Yeah, it's interesting how simply planning ahead goes into almost every aspect of our lives, doesn't it? Whether it's conversations like what we're talking about right now, short-term goals, long-term goals, rights, all this other stuff. Planning ahead matters a bit when it comes to this topic. Planning ahead also matters a lot, obviously, when it comes to grocery shopping or Christmas shopping or any of the rest. The mayhem and the craziness all happens because people wait till the last minute, right? People live in such short little sound bites of their lives, and this is something it's irked me about society in general. Is people just live right now. Right now, it's the YOLO mentality. Only thing that matters is right now, and it really just adds a lot of stress on the back end. Okay, so the workers are stressed, everyone else is stressed. But here's something that I really want to share because I think your segment brings up an interesting perspective. Both me and you, Brian, have worked in retail. Both of us have worked in retail. We've talked about it on the show before. Now, there's a little trick in retail that they do, and it's called increasing the price to make a discount, all right? Okay, so we're going to boost the price up a couple dollars, no one's going to notice, and then we're going to hit them with a buy one, get one free, okay? Suddenly, everyone's pouring in because now it's time for a great deal. And a lot of people, what they do, Brian, is and of course you know this, but they wait to the last minute because they're waiting for those Black Friday deals, okay? Or they're waiting for the Christmas blowout deals or whatever the heck they're waiting on. They're waiting for these deals. They think they're going to get a great deal. And so they're not paying attention to the fact that everything's being raised in price right before it goes down. And the price that they're getting it for, they could probably get it for in March for the same exact price. And they didn't even realize it because what the companies do, and it's kind of smart in a way, is that as they lead up to Christmas, they're not just making one giant leap at once. They're kind of gradually increasing the price until it gets to a point where no one's really noticing, and then they give the discount, and everyone thinks it's a great deal. It's manipulative, and I think a lot of people know this in the back of their head, but no one seems to care.
A lot of successful businesses comes down to not even about like having the best product or the best service. It's knowing human psychology and especially its weaknesses and exploiting that. And that's a perfect example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of things you can have a lot to say about, and by the way, I think that's the first time my segment provided an interesting perspective, because that's definitely not my goal. That's just my goal for that is just an emotional tirade that has no logical reason whatsoever. But okay, I'll take it. Fair. I'll take the wins when I can get them. All right, so But and to clarify this, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but the last thing we just said about the OCR and the HHS, that is not Google AI. This is literally the website for the Department of Health and Human Services, the official website. Mm-hmm. The next thing, here is their statement on gender affirming care. Are you ready, Zach?
Yes.
Okay. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, gender affirming care for minors improves their physical and mental health when it's medically appropriate and necessary. Furthermore, any attempts to restrict, challenge, or falsely characterize this potentially life-saving care as abuse is dangerous.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like walking out in the middle of a thunderstorm with a rod in your hand is dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to prevent people from getting these terrible hormones injected into their bodies with unknown side effects that has literally not had enough time to be able to be studied properly to see what the long-term effects of this stuff is going to be. Any claim whatsoever that says that there is a danger to not doing this drug and treatment, but there's no danger because it's life-saving treatment to do it otherwise, should always be taken with the world's largest grain of salt. Think about COVID, okay? Think about the COVID vaccines and all the rest. Take this vaccine. It's extremely dangerous if you don't. We're actually going to mandate that everyone does it because it's so important, but it really did basically nothing, okay? COVID died down in a very natural way. I don't think the vaccine had much to do with it. Who knows? I'm not Dr. Fauci. Who knows my credentials on this? Any pushback to the idea of gender-affirming care is dangerous. That's so funny. That's so fucking funny.
If you're somebody who has heard the word but don't know exactly what propaganda means,
oh my god,
show them this statement on the website, because that's what that is. Again, I told you at the very beginning. Think about the framing. Mm-hmm. And this is not Google AI. This is the actual Department of Health and Human Services website that has already taken a side on this and told you that only one view on it is acceptable, and the other side is not just wrong, but in this case, it's the worst kind of position you could take because you're talking about you're spewing something that is dangerous.
Yeah, look,
and that's why I stress that word.
There is a lot I could say to kind of to rip on this, but you guys know my opinion at this point. I would say I think a very good thing that all of us can take away is to use our heads, is to use common sense in a lot of situations. Okay, if you use your head, what does common sense tell you about a 13-year-old boy chopping his dick off, okay? What does common sense tell you? Forget all the propaganda, forget all the emotions, forget all that. Does it sound like a 13-year-old boy chopping his dick off is a good thing or a bad thing? Which one does it sound like, okay? Because your common sense analysis and where you land is probably going to be correct. And the thing about medicine, too, is, when we deal with medicine's opinion changes all the time. And it's really unfortunate to know that one of our own government agencies has such bias in their own stance, especially considering the current administration in our White House at the moment. So it's really interesting to see just how much this is ingrained in things. And I'm sure that if our administration took a look at that, they would want to get that changed. But maybe they haven't. Maybe it's an oversight. Maybe whatever. Or whoever's running it hasn't cared about what the government has to say about it, even though you are a government agency. I don't know the ins and outs of how all that stuff works. But let me tell you something very crystal clear. What you just heard is an opinion. That is not a fact. That is not the truth. That is just one other opinion. And it very much happens to be the wrong opinion.
So a lot of times when people have conversations, one of the things that gets glossed over, and I think it's important to hone in on, is, well, where's your line? Regardless of what you're talking about, is like, where do you draw the line? A lot of times people don't know. Sometimes genuinely, you have to try and talk it out to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people are purposely not knowing where the line is because it's an easy tactic to go back and forth. This is very easy for me. When it comes to any of this stuff regarding LGBTQ, trans, any of this kind of stuff, my line is this thing right here. When it's being applied to minors. That is my line. Once you get kids involved in this, that's where I go from being for it. I say for it, I don't mean I'm going to be going out there, waving a flag and clapping and doing all that, but just you do you. Live your own life, no problem here. But once you get kids involved, that's where it's an issue for me. So there's my line. But here's the thing I want people to think about. When it comes to gender affirming care, and whether it's minors or not minors, You're talking about somebody who is born one biological sex, but believes that they are the other. So they want to transition. So what's happening is the body is not matching the mind. The body is male, the mind is female, or vice versa. There's two ways to go about this. One is change the mind to match the body. The other way is change the body to match the mind. The latter is what we're talking, what they're advocating for here. Chop the dick off and make the body match the mind. The former, changing the mind, is therapy, which is what the other side advocates for, and then they get criticized. And so the reason why I put it that way is because when you look at it in that perspective, how is one side bad for suggesting it when both sides agree body doesn't match mind? What they don't agree on is which to fix. And how can you say for sure that fixing the mind and keeping the body the way it is worse than fixing the body to match the mind? How can you actually demonstrate that?
Yeah, what's actually interesting about this is, and you made me think of this because of what you're talking about, the body positivity movement and the LGBTQ movement also both come from the left. They both come from Democrats, okay? What's interesting about that, right, is body positivity is accept myself as I am. Okay, I'm overweight, I'm fat, whatever. I should just accept myself and be happy. But for the LGBTQ, it's no. Don't accept yourself, change yourself. Okay?
Good point, Zach.
And so it's an interesting thing when you kind of frame it like that. But man, in any of this, obviously I agree with you when it comes to the kids, whatever. I also kind of agree with you in your own personal opinion, because my personal opinion is not too much different. I don't give a rat's ass if my neighbor was gay. Like, I give a damn. I'm not your friend. I'm not with you. I'm not around you. I'm not, we're not living our lives together. But I would have a problem if it was someone who, if we were like in the same house. We're in the same house, we're living together, and I'm trying to raise my kids, and you have a different moral value set, and you're having that exposure's around my kid. I would have a problem if it's my kid's teacher, because I want them to have a certain influence on them. Those are all preferences that I have that, I'm allowed to have, just like anyone else is allowed to have. And guess what? You infringe upon that. I take my kids out of school. I put them in a different school. Okay? It's that simple. Now, there's solutions to these problems, but the double standards, man, I tell you, there's one side of the political sphere, man. They're all over the place. They're all over the place, the double standards.
Oh, of course. Yes. Okay. So now we're going to go from the HHS website to something called Equal Dex. I think that's the name of the
Equal
website.
Dex?
No, Zach. Equal Dex. DEX. Or Equal Dex. That's just the name of the website. And this basically just gives you a country state-by-state breakdown of all these different things.
Okay.
And you can choose the category, and then it lights up different colors based on what kind of restrictions, if any, these countries or states have. So, for example, if you start off with homosexuality, not marriage, not adoption, not gender affirming care, we're going to get to those later. Strictly just being homosexual. How other countries enforce this kind of thing. For the U.S., it's been legal since 2003. I didn't realize it was that long, that recent. I thought it was earlier than that, especially when you look at some of the other countries. For example, Canada, 1969. Mexico, 1929. Brazil, 1830. Zimbabwe, 1891. And then China and Australia, 1997. So all different year time periods, but all these countries that I just listed are all legal. Homosexuality is legal across the board. Some of them are specific, where it's legal for females to be homosexual but not males, and vice versa. Like, I'm not going to pronounce it right. Guyana.
I think it's Guyana.
Guyana. It's in Central America, I think. It's legal for females since 1894, but it's still illegal for males. And then you go past legal to what's not legal, and then different countries have different standards for punishments. Like, for example, the Sudan, since 2020, life in prison. Somalia, 2012, death penalty. Uganda, as of 3 years ago, death penalty. Afghanistan, death penalty. Iran, death penalty. Saudi Arabia, since 1932, death penalty for being homosexual. Just imprisonment. Not life in prison, not death penalty, so the least egregious. Libya, since 1953. Kenya, since 1930. Senegal, since 1966. Iraq. What are you noticing about what I'm saying here?
A lot of Eastern countries, for sure.
A lot of Middle Eastern and African countries. Meanwhile, U.S., Canada, Mexico, Brazil, all those countries, totally fine. So that's where, with regard to just homosexuality. I'm going to get to other things later, like gay marriage and changing gender. But so far, Zach, and I didn't go through all the lists. I wrote a lot of them down. I just kind of shot off a few of them. But it's all over the place, and you guys can look at this up yourself and see for yourself.
Yeah. I'm just surprised that I actually found something I agree with Saudi Arabia on. Anyway, move on. I'm kidding, guys. It's fine. Like I said, do what you want to do. Just do it extremely far away from me, okay? That's my only request.
Okay. Other places, it varies by region, like Russia and Indonesia. But now we'll get to gay marriage. Gay marriage is banned in most African countries. There we go again. It is also banned in Russia, Ukraine. Remember, one's bad and one's good, depending on which side you're on. Both ban gay marriage. Belarus, which is basically Russia or Ukraine. Also banned in most of the Middle East, Indonesia, Peru, and Paraguay. But other than that, in the U.S., it's been legal since 2015. We all know that. It's been legal in Brazil since 2 years prior to that, 2013. It's been legal in Argentina since 2010. So again, Middle East, African countries, totally banned, plus Russia. And most in the U.S. and in most of North and South America, it is legal. Again,
hold on. I need to stop you real quick. Did you just say that gay marriage was legalized in the United States in 2015?
Yes. You not remember that?
No. I remember hearing talks about it. I didn't remember it was that recent.
Oh, yeah.
Crap. Okay, for example,
it's been 10 years, yeah.
Take a moment to consider the fact that it's been 11 years, whatever. Take a moment to consider the fact it's been a decade. One singular decade since gay marriage was legalized in this country, and look at where we're at now. Okay? If talk about an explosion in the wrong direction. One thing that I want to say that I think is really important is in this country, if we look at history and we look at some of the things like this, and maybe we could do a whole episode just about, big historical changes and what's happened in the country as a result. Do we think that our society today is better because of the laws that we decided to pass? Or do we think that the time period before this was a better time period for society, how people behaved, all that? I think that's an interesting question. Please proceed.
Yeah, I am not going one way or the other in terms of whether this is good or bad. The point is that I want to get across is the U.S. makes all these things legal so far. We'll get to this stuff later. And other countries don't completely ban it. Some of them give you a death penalty. And I wonder if you put the gay LGBTQ stuff aside, if a lot of the people who advocate for these rights, what their opinion is of those countries. For example, what would their opinion be of African countries? Mm-hmm. Would they, say something offensive about those countries? Or would they say something like, say something, I guess, PC to not be offensive and praise that country, praise the citizens of that country, so on and so forth. Meanwhile, they ban the very thing that you claim the U.S. is banning or trying to ban, and it actually doesn't.
Can I say something real quick, Brian, if you don't mind? You made me think about this.
You're the dictator. You're the dictator. Do what you want.
Yes, exactly. You made me think about this, and I was thinking about something you had said earlier in the episode where you were talking about, kind of forming the mind to the body or forming the body to the mind, that idea. And I wanted to make a point because when you're talking about these different countries and how people perceive them, it's all based on how it's presented to them. If it's presented in a way of like Ukraine, Russia, and they're presenting it as one guy's the bad guy, one guy's a good guy, people are easily influenced. And it made me think, because you were referencing that earlier about the, change your body, change your mind. Do you guys realize, has anyone listening to this podcast ever watched a movie before and maybe gotten emotional throughout that movie? Can I just remind you that movie is an hour and a half long, okay? You're telling me that a film that's an hour and a half long, that's just showing you a video or picture and some audio, can affect you emotionally to the point that you can have tears go down your face, right? That's an interesting emotional impact. That's an emotional thing that you just did there. But it also shows just how easily influenceable people are, okay? Yes, you recognize it's a fake thing, but it had an emotional sway on you, okay? So the mind and the body is first of all, it's a really dumb thing because they're one and the same. All right, I'm sorry. You are who you are. Change yourself if you want to. Whatever. I don't know. We'll get into that another time. But your mind is easily influenced. So if you're around stuff that's pushing you to do one thing, to go in a certain direction, if you're telling me that your 3-year-old is presenting as a girl because you saw him pick up a Barbie, and the next thing you knew, you decided to go put him in all girls clothes and change his room to pink. Okay, now it doesn't sound like he's deciding to go a certain direction. It sounds a lot more like you're pushing him to do something and you're influencing his mind. So, and I'll finish with this. If an hour and a half movie can get you to cry at the end of it because of some emotional appeal in just an hour and a half, how long do you think, or how strong do you think the influence is when you raise a child to believe that they're in the wrong body and they grow into a teenage years or adulthood? Of course that's going to have a strong impact, and of course that's going to change the way their mind works. Just want to get that point out there.
I definitely think we have to have an episode, probably a whole episode about the whole body mind thing, because I think we see that specific aspect of it a little bit differently. So we probably need to flesh that out at a different time. But now we get to the big one, which is changing your gender, and what countries say about that, and we'll also get to some of the U.S. states. Okay. For example, every African country bans it except for one, and that is Botswana.
I was going to say that. Yep.
I know you're going to guess that. It's legal in Botswana. Every other African country, completely bans changing your gender.
Okay.
I want that to sink in for people who bitch and moan about the United States, and their oppression. Every African country except for Botswana completely bans changing your gender. But the list does not end there. It is also banned in your boys in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Thailand, Cambodia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Paraguay, Venezuela, and others. That's just the ones I wrote down. Completely banned. You're not allowed to change your gender. Completely in the entire country. Okay. U.S. states, some banned in U.S. states. But these aren't completely banned, I guess. The caveat is, from what I understand, I haven't looked at each specific state law, but there has to be a surgery. It has to be some kind of medical diagnosis or some kind of necessary surgery. So you have to kind of like prove that you need it, I guess. Like you can't just go in. You can't just go in and be like, "Can you chop my penis off?" And they say, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And then that's it. You have to go through a process where a doctor understands that this is needed, and so on and so forth.
Good thing that's not subjective.
I know. I understand it opens up another can of worms, but
you're good.
But it's a slightly different standard. Mm-hmm. So Texas banned since 2024. Oklahoma since this past March. Kansas since this past February. Wyoming since this past March. Idaho since 2024. Iowa since June 2025, so a year ago. Indiana, March 2025. Tennessee, 2023. And Florida, June 2024, have banned gender change in surgery unless there's some kind of medical diagnosis. It's like medically necessary. Those are the states that have banned it. Every other state I have not mentioned has not banned it. It doesn't mean that's completely allowed. Each state has different restrictions, but those are the ones that are a hard no. And gender affirming care, which again applies to the minors, is very similar to what I just said before in terms of what countries ban it, which countries don't. And U.S. is not really banned in any state, but it might be restricted depending on the circumstances. So there you go. The U.S., the country that we all complain about being oppressive and hates trans and hates all that, they don't really ban any of this stuff. Maybe some states have certain restrictions on it. They didn't really ban it. But Africa, Middle East, Russia, and an occasional country either in the Far East or in South America ban certain things. But that's really it.
It's really interesting how I think we talked about this, and I think we talked about this a long time ago, Brian, of having an episode on the podcast just discussing the difference between Western and Eastern philosophy, right?
Yes.
And we haven't done that episode yet. We'll do it at some time in the future. Who knows? But I think this is a really interesting kind of a viewpoint on the whole difference. How the way that we handle it is so vastly different from the East and the West. The West seems to be okay with all these things to varying degrees, and a lot of parts of the East, not all of them obviously, but a lot of parts of the East aren't. And a lot of parts of Africa, is Africa considered to be the East or the West? I don't know. They're kind of...
I think it depends on Africa. Like South Africa is probably considered West.
Okay.
But the countries that none of us really know about and haven't really heard of that are probably considered third world countries, things like that, I would imagine those are considered maybe East or neither. I don't really know is there West, East, and then Third World. Like I don't really know how that goes.
I think another big contributing factor in why we see what we do with the list you just brought up is about freedom. And in America, yes, you have conservatism. Obviously, it's very strong. People want to take care of our country and conserve our country, but we also care a lot about freedom. A place like Saudi Arabia doesn't give a damn about your freedom, so it makes sense that they have a much more oppressive system. Because you're just giving one example. I'm sure there's many things that you can be beheaded for in Saudi Arabia, well beyond just chopping your dick off. So in America, it's all about freedom, and unfortunately, that freedom has consequences. Freedom does have consequences, right? So, and that's kind of the Western philosophy in general, is we're much bigger on freedom, less on, our ancestral obligation necessarily, or things outside of ourselves. Some of us are, but clearly not all of us. And as a country, I don't think that we are. So if this is your mentality, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, if you want to be in a place that is welcoming to you, the Western countries is really, I guess, where you want to be. I would direct you to Canada, though. Okay.
And that freedom, by the way, also means you have the freedom to do these things, but other people have the freedom to completely disagree with you.
Yeah.
And you need to be okay with that. Because if you're not okay with that, you're advocating for the very thing you claim to be against, which is, I want things to be my way. I want things to be one way, I should say. One way. That one way happens to be the way that I agree with, and everyone else has to fall in line. You claim to be against that. Meanwhile, as you're advocating to do all these things, you also have a problem with other people calling it out. So you can't really have it both ways. So that's why I take regardless of where I stand on whatever issue we're talking about, other people calling it out, I might occasionally listen to what they're saying, but most of the time I just kind of shrug them off, because I'm not interested in your opinion. Your opinion is ill-informed or whatever it is, and that's it. But I'm not going to yell and scream and demand that they get censored and all this other stuff, because that's the very opposite of what freedom of speech is supposed to be about. So either you're for freedom or you're not. And here's the other thing to consider. And I might be calling out a very specific small group of people, but they might need to hear it. If you are somebody, let's say that I got on the podcast and I said something about Yemen, and I said that's a shithole country in whatever context, and you respond to that as I'm racist and hateful and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, I just told you that Yemen, which one was it? I think it was bans gay marriage to the point completely bans it. So you're not really okay with that, I would imagine. You're not okay with them banning gay marriage. Are you going to hold them to the same moral standard that you hold the people in the U.S. who don't like gay marriage, where you basically call them the worst kind of things in the world? It's not just a handful of people in Yemen who think that. The entire country most likely believes that, because they have it completely banned. So my point is, maybe if someone like me, it doesn't have to be me, calls out Yemen for being a shithole country, there's not some kind of, because the people in Yemen, I don't like the color of their skin. Maybe it's because they see what their mindset is like, and it goes beyond just gay marriage, all these other things that also make no sense, that are completely against Western values, and they completely disagree with it, so they call it out and call it a shithole country, and you just focus on, for whatever reason, the fact that they're brown, that must be the reason why you call that out. But maybe it has something to do with a lot of other things, like, for example, the fact that they ban gay marriage. So are you going to have a problem with people calling out Yemen or any other country for that? Or is it only just for calling out gay marriage, in which case you're kind of moving the goalposts when it's convenient?
It's the latter. It's the latter. And in our country, we have different subsets of people. We have different sections of, we have different demographics, all the rest. And there are some people who do things differently. There's different cultures that have bled into this country. We have to deal with all these different cultures, and they have their ups and downs. Now, pointing it out, you'll be called a racist. So, yes, in your Yemen example, I think if someone wants to approach your position in bad faith, they're going to. They're going to say that you're practicing bad faith here because blah, blah, blah. Or they're going to give you all these other reasons why something's okay, even if they don't agree with one aspect. Well, look, here's the thing, guys. When we're talking about any group of people, there are going to be things you agree with and things you disagree with. I challenge you to find any group of people in which you agree with everything on and don't disagree with anything on. Okay?
Besides me and Zach.
Besides the Value Added Podcast. Well, yes. I mean, even here, me and you disagree, Brian. So
that's true.
That's a tough thing to figure out. But yeah, I think that you brought up a lot of good points in this episode.
What I looked up was I didn't like look up based on my own agenda. I basically just put in LGBTQ rights into Google, and some of these websites popped up, plus the AI search we started with, and the website itself, the Equal Dex, not what Zach thought it was. The Equal Dex thing website is very useful for anyone who who's unsure about these LGBTQ rights and where the U.S. stands with all this stuff. Go into that. Like I said, it goes country by country, but it also goes by state. Where you can break down based on. I didn't look at all of it. I was just the things I mentioned here, the things I looked up, but there's other stuff too, and it tells you what state does what country does what, and hopefully it crystallizes things a little bit more to be like, where you realize, you know what, the U.S. is actually extremely tolerant, extremely accepting, extremely understanding. They give you the freedom to do these things, but they also understand that there's gonna be people who disagree with it, and they're allowed to disagree with it. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just remember that, guys. Just remember that. And yeah, you didn't need an agenda going into it at all, because anytime you look up this stuff, it kind of speaks for itself. It really does. It's right there.
I didn't want to look at the AI stuff. I wanted to look just at the websites, the HHS website and Equal Dex. But once I saw that AI, I was like, okay, I got to. There's actually one thing I missed that maybe I can just finish off with. It's an entire statement from another website called the Human Rights Watch. I just want to read it just because it's a perfect example of everything we talked about before. Framing, propaganda, emotional appeal, and all that. So the website is called Human Rights Watch. And this is a statement that you see at their homepage. You ready, Zach? You ready to buckle in? Okay.
Yep.
People around the world face violence and inequality, and sometimes torture, even execution, because of who they love, how they look, or who they are. Sexual orientation and gender identity are integral aspects of ourselves and should never lead to discrimination or abuse. Human Rights Watch works for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people's rights, and with activists representing a multiplicity of identities and issues. We document and expose abuses based on sexual orientation and gender identity worldwide, including torture, killing and executions, arrests under unjust laws, unequal treatment, censorship, medical abuses, discrimination in health and jobs and housing, domestic violence, abuses against children, and denial of family rights and recognition. We advocate for laws and policies that will protect everyone's dignity. We work for a world where all people can enjoy their rights fully. Doesn't that make you just feel warm inside?
It does, and it really does make me think as well. When you hear people shout that the LGBTQ people are oppressed, it makes you wonder, how does a company like that exist? if we live in an oppressive society, right?
And if they're exposing all these things all worldwide, how does what I showed you? Why is that never mentioned in mainstream media? Why does nobody talk about it on big platforms and social media? Why does nobody talk about the fact that these African countries basically hate you for being gay, actually hate you for being gay, to the point where they want to imprison you for life or cut your head off? They actually hate you for being gay. Nobody talks about that, but when anyone mentions these African countries in any context, you're somehow racist. If this organization exists to call that stuff out, why are they not calling that out?
Because it goes against. Look, I feel like in this group, in this particular political ideology, they have no problem having double standards, but some of them try to pay attention to it and steer away from it, and I think that's what they're trying to do here. Oh yeah, that guy over there, I like that guy, so I'm just going to ignore the fact that I see him dragging a body bag into the woods right now. I'll just ignore that. I'll ignore that fact.
It's not about what's being done, it's about who's doing it, yes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So
that's exactly right. So yeah, so that's my all my information that I pulled up, and I'll leave some links in the description, but I really don't have to. Just put in LGBTQ rights in the search bar, and all this stuff will pop up for you, and have fun.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I think you did a great job on time today. I think a lot of the points that you made were.
Thank God.
I know you're sweating about that. It's like, can I get it?
I have to please the dictator, so.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to get beheaded, right?
I do not want to get beheaded. It'll be live on the next episode, and you don't want to miss it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we learned a lot today, guys. You know my opinion about this topic and this stuff. If you feel that your rights as an LGBTQ individual have been violated, please reach out to us at valueadded.zbgmail.com and let us know which rights in particular have been violated. Perhaps perhaps we even violated someone on today's episode.
The right to not be offended.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So if we did any of that, please reach out to us. You can also interact in the comment section here on Spotify or on YouTube. You can also interact on the poll on this episode. So lots of places you guys can interact. And yeah, we're back here every Friday at 8 a.m. with a new video for you and a new episode for your enjoyment. So we hope you guys stick around, subscribe to the podcast, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.